Hey Ian, I hope you're having a great time in Montana. We're snowing here, so you're not missing anything if you have a lot of snow there. I wanted to go through this side-by-side proposal with you, kind of showing you the two different companies that we have the best quotes from, um, and then I can answer more questions for you afterwards. We could talk directly. So we get quotes like this in the mail. I love Cincinnati. I think they're a fantastic company. You can see though, here's 43 pages here inside this quote. A lot of it's just uh, telling you how great they are. So we try to take the information out and package it into a comparison like this. So we went through and we didn't quote the buildings, we just quoted the property. And you can see the rates up here, property rates, the value of the equipment, the value of the material, the inventory, etc., per location, and then water backup and sump pump coverage. It's this coverage right here, the water backup, is important at your downtown location. There's a line that runs through there that we've had some issues with at other locations downtown, and so we wanted to make sure we got as much coverage as possible. And American Hallmark would give you up to 50,000, and Cincinnati would only give you 10,000. So that's an important distinction. I love Cincinnati. Um, um, but I also really like American Hallmark. In the end, American Hallmark ends up being a better deal than Cincinnati. Cincinnati's got some nice coverage extensions that we'll talk about. Everything here is fairly similar. Business income, so if you were down and you were losing income, this would step in and cover your bills. Actual loss sustained is what ALS stands for. And they usually go back and they kind of look at what you did historically, and then they look at what you were doing, and they kind of arrive at an amount to reimburse you. Um, Special form is the best form that you can get. That just kind of broadens the types of claims that they're going to be willing to cover. Replacement costs and equipment breakdown are both covered. So if you had a big oven that for some reason stopped working, and like one time we had some mice get inside a machine and chew on the wires and short circuit it, there's coverage for that. Accounts receivable, that's going back and figuring out who all owes you money and then trying to recreate that list. It's not a huge deal for you guys, so the extra coverage under Cincinnati is not going to be as important. Most people are buying stuff from you and paying for it right there. But food contamination, business interruption could be a big deal for you, and that would be somebody came to your restaurant and they got a bad sandwich and they got sick as a result of the food being contaminated. You remember Chipotle a few years ago had this happen to them and they were down for a while. So if you were down because you had contaminated food and you had to close for a little while, you do have coverage for that. For the business interruption. So that type of lost downtime, you'd be covered for up to 50,000. Earthquake and flood, nobody will give us earthquake on the downtown location. It's just the building is too old and it's going to be rubble if there's an earthquake. So we have to have a conversation about whether or not you want to put it on the other two locations. It seems like your South Salem location might be the one you'd want to put it on if you did get some, just because that's the production equipment. But I wanted to have that conversation with you before we went through that work of asking for that. Inland marine is stuff you may take on and off site. Cincinnati throws in coverage at 25,000. Predominantly, this is going to be for laptops, cell phones, things like that. And then they give you a little bit of coverage in the event that you lose a laptop and it causes you to be down or lose some income as a result. Highly unlikely, nice coverage to have, not hugely important to you. Crime is typically people stealing from you. Employee theft, you can see. So know who your bookkeeper is and trust that bookkeeper implicitly, but always, figure out how to investigate them, because those are always the ones who figure out how to sneak money away from you. Your general liability, Hallmark, their rate of $289. I've confirmed this with them. That's their rate. They have built in a lot of the charge for in their rate on the property side. If you feel like you have a low rate or a low exposure, so it's just $289, and I have gone back and confirmed that with them. As you go through that, the only real different there is the fire damage legal. So the places that you rent right now, they may want you to have fire or property liability coverage in the event you cause a fire and burn their building down. This is the most Hallmark will go to, and Cincinnati goes up to $1 million. So that's an important coverage distinction. Cincinnati throws in, or excuse me, Hallmark throws in $100,000 of employment practices liability. That's an important coverage for you, where you're coming in and you're buying a coverage. It's something that you're going to want to make sure in case you lay somebody off as a result of coming in new. And they turn around and sue you for it. There's some coverage in there for the employment practices. Usually when they say that you discriminated against them, and that's how that particular coverage works. Bodily injury exception to the pollution exclusion. So this just means that if there's a pollutant in the ground, or a pollutant, usually it's like refrigeration that causes some bodily injury to people, whether or not it's covered, and it's covered on Cincinnati and it's not covered with Hallmark. Both companies include coverage for employee benefits. This would be if you offered a health plan, you forgot to add somebody, and then they needed a liver transplant, and it wasn't covered by their medical plan because you never added them. Something like that is covered. Pretty innocuous. Coverage for your automobile. You can see they both cover at $1 million, and then there's an umbrella of $1 million from Hallmark and $2 million from Cincinnati under your liability. And that's probably where you're most likely to have a claim, actually, is somebody driving on rear end somebody. These two items are both innocuous here. Hired and non-owned auto is picked up here in the general liability and is picked up down here under the auto. Really a matter of semantics on that position. Cincinnati does provide some coverage for cyber, so if somebody goes online and orders from you and they put some personal information in there and it gets hacked, you have some coverage in there for a response to that, where Hallmark does not offer it. And then, of course, terrorism coverage, 90 days, and that number is not right. I don't know where that number of 9,000 came from. That number right there is not right. So I'm going to have to redo that number for you, because that just is not the right number. It's actually $4,000, and I think it's that right there. I put that in. Let me delete that out. 5,000 should be over there. You have 5,000 of commercial equipment. This is the 4th version, and I still finding things I need to correct. So there we go. At the bottom there, you can see the total cost differences between the two. $4,675 for American Hallmark and $5,738 for Cincinnati. Frankly, I would take the Hallmark quote. I think they provide a lot of great coverage, and the extra bells and whistles that Cincinnati offers are just not enough to make up the difference of that extra $1,000. So that's kind of a quick overview of it, and I can look forward to talking with you in more detail about it. Phone number for me is 1-800-285-8543. Thanks a lot. Look forward to talking to you in more detail about this.